Have you ever felt completely stuck in this weird tug-of-war? On one side, you've got everyone saying, just accept yourself, you're enough, exactly as you are. But then the other side is this constant nagging pressure to be better, to improve, to grow. It feels like a total contradiction, right? But what if it's not? What if these two ideas are actually two sides of the same coin, pointing to something way deeper?
Okay, let's really get into this because this is a question that hits right at the heart of, well, pretty much everything. Do you just accept things and find contentment, or do you keep pushing and striving, maybe losing your peace of mind along the way? It really feels like you have to pick a side. But today, we're going to tear that idea apart and show you why that's a totally false choice. First off, let's just acknowledge that feeling of being pulled in two directions. If this resonates with you, you are so not alone. This isn't some kind of personal failure. It's actually a sign that you're tapping into some really deep, really powerful human drives that are literally built into our DNA. So why can't we just turn off that little voice that says, be more? Well, psychology gives us two big reasons. First, there's something called the self-expansion drive. Our brains are wired to give us a little hit of reward every time we learn something new, master a skill, or just explore. We don't grow because we're broken. We grow because it feels good. And then there's the drive for belonging. We're social creatures, and a part of feeling valued in our tribe is feeling competent and like we're contributing. It's totally natural. Okay, so if we're basically hardwired to grow, where does acceptance fit into all of this? Well, this is where we get to flip the whole script. Instead of seeing acceptance and improvement as enemies locked in a battle, psychology shows us they're actually perfect partners. The huge insight here is that they work on completely different levels. Acceptance, that's emotional. That's the foundation. It's about being able to look at where you are right now, the good, the bad, the messy, and not beat yourself up about it. Improvement, on the other hand, is all behavioral. It's the action you take from that solid, secure foundation. I mean, think about it. If you're constantly telling yourself you're not good enough, every attempt to improve just becomes another stick to beat yourself with. And the science totally backs this up. Dr. Kristen Neff's amazing work on self-compassion shows that being kind to yourself is actually a massive catalyst for growth. When you stop wasting all that precious mental energy on self-blame, you free it all up to actually learn and make real, lasting changes. Acceptance doesn't stop improvement, it fuels it.
But I know what you're thinking. If I get too content, won't I just become a lazy blob on the couch? That's because we mix up two very different things, passive contentment and active contentment. Passive contentment is basically resignation. It's throwing in the towel. But active contentment, that's a game changer. It's this deep feeling of, you know what? I'm okay, I'm whole, right now. And I'm curious about what's next. That kind of contentment doesn't kill your drive. It just takes all the desperate, anxious energy out of it. And this is really the most beautiful way to put it. You can't fly with just one wing. You need the wing of contentment to give you stability and lift, and you need the wing of skillful effort to move you forward. They aren't fighting each other, they're working together to help you soar. So all of this brings us to a really interesting point. If you're someone who's asking these big questions, like, why am I even trying to improve? It's not a sign that you're lost. It's actually a sign that you're leveling up your wisdom. You could even call it a healthy meaning crisis. What feels like a confusing crisis is really a deep realignment. You're shifting away from external goals, like, I need to achieve X to be worthy, and moving toward internal ones, like, okay, if I'm already worthy, then what is growth really for? It's a totally normal and honestly a really healthy sign of maturity. And what's fascinating is that ancient wisdom has a powerful tool for this exact moment. In Buddhist philosophy, there's this concept called Yoniso Manasikara. I know, it's a mouthful, but it basically means wise attention. It's the actual skill of training your mind to focus on the right kind of questions, the ones that cut through the fog instead of making it thicker. And that right there brings us to the real root of the problem. The tension we feel, it doesn't actually come from the desire to grow or the desire to be content. It comes from the tricky identity trap our minds set for us with the wrong questions. See, without training, our minds naturally drift into what's called unwise attention. We get all tangled up in these huge abstract questions about a fixed me. Questions like, what am I, or what will I become? And there it is right at the end. Should I be content or ambitious? These are the kinds of questions that just spin us in circles. The Buddha used some really intense language for this. He called it a thicket of views, a desert of views. And why? Because these questions don't have answers that bring peace. They're quicksand. They just lead to more thinking, more doubt, and more confusion, because they're all built on this shaky idea of a permanent self that needs to be perfectly defined.
So what does wise attention do instead? It totally changes the game. Instead of asking, who am I? It asks practical, down-to-earth questions. Like, what is this feeling of stress I'm having right now? What's causing it? What would it feel like if that cause was gone? And hey, what's one step I could take to move in that direction? It shifts you from being obsessed with your identity to just looking at the process. From self-obsession to clear-headed problem solving.
And there it is. That's the big light bulb moment. The desire to learn and develop is not the problem. It's a beautiful, natural part of being human. The problem is when that beautiful desire gets hijacked by the ego's endless project of building a better me. The confusion comes from trying to fix an identity that was never solid to begin with. This understanding opens up a whole new and honestly a much more freeing reason to grow. Once we learn to step out of that identity trap, the entire point of self-improvement gets a major upgrade. The goal is no longer about adding more shiny achievements or personality traits to some imaginary self to finally make it worthy. Nope. The new purpose is simply to let go, to abandon the mental habits like anger, anxiety, confusion, and greed that cause stress for you and for everyone around you. Growth becomes a process of subtraction, not addition. And that just changes everything, doesn't it? It shifts your entire motivation. You move from this insecure, anxious goal of, I have to improve to finally be good enough, to this empowered, liberated one. I can train my mind to be free from what causes it pain. The whole energy behind your effort shifts from striving to skillful, calm cultivation. So what does this new kind of growth look like? Well, it looks like intentionally nurturing qualities like peace, wisdom, and kindness. Not to put on your resume, not to get more likes, but because these are the very things that lead to a clear, stable, and happy mind. Growth becomes an act of inner clarity. So we want to leave you with this one question to play with. The next time you feel that old tug-of-war between accepting yourself and wanting to be better, just try dropping the who question. Instead of asking, who should I be? Just pause for a second and gently ask yourself, what would bring just a little more clarity and a little less confusion into this very moment? That simple shift might just be the key to all the freedom you've been looking for.